Tech Taproom, where your next beer, you can just go ahead and put it on the Veterinary Viewfinder tab. Becky
At
is
some point, we're
home.
going to have to ask
I
them
know.
to pay some of that down.
Yeah,
It's getting pretty big.
seriously. But I think Becky is still at home recuperating. I don't know if Dr. Ward's at Western in Las Vegas this week or not. I
He
know a
might
lot of
be,
our
yeah.
colleagues are. But anyway, if you're in Vegas, say hi to them. They're
Yeah.
just wonderful people. First day before we dive in, I know you have a beer. I have a beer too. Cheers to you.
Cheers to
Um,
you. What are you drinking? I'm drinking Photon Sphere. I don't drink a ton of beer anymore, and I need to like ramp up my beer drinking because I'm going to be spending a weekend with you. Um, this is one that I got. I can't even remember when I did the dog sitting. It's the Old Hickory Brewery Imperial Stout. It's a bourbon barrel aged, and you know I love bourbon barrel aged. It's aged with honey, cinnamon, vanilla, cocoa, and habanero peppers.
does it have some heat to it?
It's got a little heat to it, and
Ah,
it's an imperial stout, so it is thick. And
mm-hmm.
it was warm here recently, but today it's like in the 40s. So back to the stouts. What are
Yeah,
you
it's a
drinking?
perfect. I have so this is by City Built
Okay,
in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I got it in my Christmas beer exchange group that I'm
nice.
in, and this is an imperial stout aged in maple bourbon barrels. So
Oh
it's a
wow!
maple
All
bourbon
right,
barrel aged stout. It's delicious. This was my breakfast beer this morning,
nice.
and yeah, I took Daphne to the trampoline park
Oh,
and so that
nice.
was my
What is that called? We have one of those by us. It's right by the gym that I go to. I can't remember what
we
the name
have
of it is.
ours are called Big Air Trampoline Park. I don't know if it's the same
Yeah,
there, but I
it's
think it's
something
a
like that.
chain.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. So super fun. So we have. Well, first let's do our new thing we're gonna do
Oh
here.
yeah.
Yeah. So this
I,
was your
I saw this
idea.
on Instagram and I was like, that's a good idea. We should incorporate that into our thing. And it's called dinner party questions, where they're just random like icebreaker questions. And I thought it would be a good idea for you and I to have these little icebreaker questions that you would have at a dinner party to just encourage conversation. And we'll post both of these to upload for the tap room as well, to get your feedback on these things too. So you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
All right. What is the most miserable experience that you wish a startup would solve?
Most miserable experience that a startup would
Yeah,
solve.
like something you have to deal with on a daily basis or monthly basis that
Mm,
if some company could come up with a solution to it, what would it be?
I think I would say just like maybe faster, more reliable internet.
Hmm. For
Like
me,
that
it's
just
moving.
oh
I wish I know there's moving companies that exist, but I wish there was something that didn't cost a couple grand to do. I
mm,
wish there was something that was very quick and easy that you could just move
mm,
and not even have to think about it.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's
But
fair.
faster
That's
internet, yes, that would be. But again, that's going to cost money, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's going to raise
yeah.
your prices and all that stuff. I
It's
wish it was
all
something cheaper.
all right. Well, this one is completely free. If you absolutely had to sing karaoke, what would be your go-to song?
I saw this. We
I
must
was
be
gonna
looking at the
laugh if we
same
picked the
list.
same picture.
I,
If
well,
if we
that's why I
picked the
looked at
same
a bunch of them
question.
because I was like, what if we're on the same list? Because you probably clicked on the first one that popped up like I
Oh,
did.
100%. Yeah.
If I had to, um, the first thing that I could think of is you. We've all seen the video of the dude that just stands there for like 2.5 minutes and then says tequila. That's one of them. But when I'm in the car, and Robin was going to laugh at this when she hears this, because I don't fancy myself a good singer. And so to cover up for that, I sing things as wildly inappropriate and off key as possible to mask the fact for that. But if I were to sing, it would probably be something by I can't think of his name right now. He's a crooner. Uh, he's a young guy. What the heck
Like
is his
a
name?
like a Michael Bublé?
Michael Bublé. I would because here's the thing. So I've got a history in music, playing music.
Mhm.
I was a trumpet major for a short period of time, and I played trumpet for gosh,
Do you
8, 10,
still
12 years
play?
something. I have like 6 trumpets, but I never have the time to like pull them out, and I'm so out of practice. But the problem with singing is that you always try to emulate the person that you're singing, and he's a person that sings in the same not that I have the same vocal range as him, but he's the one that sings in a more natural key for me. When I try to sing songs from other people,
Like
it's out
Journey.
of my key or out of my range, and it strains my voice and it hurts to do it, so I can't do it. But he's one that if I'm in the car and I'm singing along with him, it doesn't hurt, and it feels kind of natural, and I almost think I'm good, but I would never in a million years ever sing karaoke in front of anyone. Never. You
Gotcha.
would
Oh
never find
gosh.
that.
You can't
But
get me away from
I
you
think I'm
can't get
decent.
me away from the mic in a karaoke bar.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
yeah, I love karaoke. But my two go-to songs, "Pour Some Sugar on Me" by Def
Okay.
Leppard
Okay.
and "Thriller" by Michael Jackson.
Really? All right.
Yes, yes, yeah. I
Well,
and I'm
if
not saying
we
they're good. I'm not good, but I
but you
don't
enjoy
care.
doing it, right?
Oh my gosh, yes,
For me,
absolutely.
I would be so nervous that I would just stand up there and be like, ah, this is going to be terrible.
I sing terribly, but I sing all day. I sing to Molly. I sing to Daphne. I sing in the car. I sing in the shop. I sing everywhere. And
if if we get going enough in Phoenix, maybe you'll get me to a karaoke bar, because the
uh,
amount of beer that you had me drink last year, like,
maybe,
possible that you could get me
maybe
in
we'll
front of a
just stick to
microphone.
singing the seventh inning stretch.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
Those are good questions. I like those.
yeah, for
We'll keep
sure.
going with this.
Speaking of Phoenix, let's just jump right into that. So
Yeah.
this is our last tap room before we actually go. So
Yep. We'll be there on the
okay,
10th to the 12th,
to
I
the
believe.
13th, I think, is Wednesday. We
13th.
fly
Yeah.
home. Yeah. Arizona Caffeinators, and I know Stephanie Perry already kind of reached out to
Yep.
us, and I think we might try to meet up somewhere Sunday night. It's a travel day, Dave, so I don't know if you're going to feel up for it after a ball game or what have you, but I think that on a weekend probably be the easiest, and maybe meet up with a couple of people and just hang out and have a beer and
I'm a good
meet some new
traveler.
folks. Yeah.
I don't I don't I don't push back against anything. Like, if you're
Yeah.
like, we're gonna go to this
It,
place, yeah,
and we
we're
can
going.
sleep in Monday morning and
Yeah,
get a cup of coffee and
yeah, we're good.
whatever. So yeah, I think that'll be super
We
fun.
talked about
But
meeting up with Brandy.
yeah, absolutely,
Um,
we're going to see Brandy Halua, which is
yeah,
fantastic.
and I know the guy that's in the Arizona Vet Tech Association. He's reached out.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I
Joseph,
can't remember
right?
his Joseph. Yeah,
Yeah,
Miranda. Yeah,
uh-huh.
so he's reached out to us a couple times. So maybe we'll
Yeah,
meet up with him.
yeah.
Who else is out there? Lisa
Um,
Kernigan is out
uh,
there, but
Lisa,
she's super
yeah,
busy, so I don't know if
yeah.
she's free.
And I know Amanda Crumpler, who follows us
Oh
on
yeah,
Facebook, has
yeah,
said too she'd be into it. So I think like we'll actually start like a conversation here in the next week or so and
yep.
see and I think
We'll
if
reach out
we
to people.
actually just say like, hey, we're going to be at this place at this time, anybody is welcome. Come show up, and if it's just you and I having a beer, then so be it. But
I mean, we
if
haven't
people
seen
come
each
by
other
and hang
in
out, yeah, I
what,
know,
6 months, 7 months.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
I
So
mean, that's what we did last year. We just hung out together all last
yeah,
year and
yeah,
had a great
yeah,
time. It was one of my favorite trips to do, is because it's so low key, just
yeah.
chill, bunch
Agreed.
of baseball involved. Oh,
Yeah, I know. Same.
if
Yeah,
I win the
and
lottery, that's what I'm doing. I'm just traveling to do baseball stadiums. That's all I'm going to
yeah,
do.
yeah, for sure. And so Arizona Caffeinators, if you're
Yeah.
in the greater Phoenix area, we're going to be there the 10th to the 13th. We'd love to see you and say hi. We'd love to talk about the Arizona Vet Tech Association and
Yep.
what you guys are up to and
Because
what.
they're relatively new, right?
Yeah, they are.
Last
They
few
are.
years. Yeah.
Last year or two. Yeah. So yeah, I think it'll be a great time. We've already got a couple tickets to different baseball games. Can do the same thing we did last year and go hard, but also not.
Right.
Yeah. So
And I'm hoping for a repeat of our rental car experience that we had last
mhm,
year.
mhm.
The
The
I don't know how
quickest
many of our
pickup.
listeners are rental car people, but I've never been through a rental car situation that was the easiest and quickest. It almost felt like we joked about this, like there was somebody behind the counter,
Yeah.
like holding up the rental car counter and just said, "Give them these keys and get them out of here," because we were in literally in 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, we were out and gone. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
hoping for a repeat of that.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too. That'll be great. So yeah, anyway, Arizona Caffeinators, keep an eye out. We'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you and say hi. We'll definitely have whatever swag we have currently with us. So yeah, come out and say hi.
Yep.
We'll definitely post where we're going to be and what we'll be doing. And if it's not Sunday night, I can promise
We're
you
there.
Monday night,
Yeah.
Tuesday night, we're going to be at a brewery somewhere, and we'll post and definitely come say hi. We'd love to hang out.
Yeah.
So,
and then we have our staff meeting, like we're going to gather all of the employees of the Vet Tech Cafe and Taproom, and
all both of us will be
together.
there. Yeah, we had to get a big conference room this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
catered and all that stuff.
It's just basically you and I going to be sitting at opposite ends of the table, just yelling to each other. But but it's going to work. Yeah, and honestly, I think a lot of stuff we did this last year came out of that.
And hopefully this year we'll get more stuff. I've got some ideas of things that we're going to do different this year. Some of the things that we said that we were going to do last year, or 2023. Some of the things that we put on our list that we're going to do, so we're definitely going to do it this year, and didn't do it this year. I'm going to say let's not plan to do that this year because it's wasted effort.
Yeah, and I have one big thing that we didn't get to last year that I've already got kind of prepped and planned for later this year. So we'll talk about that, and
can't wait.
It's always good to do some planning. So
yeah.
What else do you have on the docket today? There was something else you wanted to talk about.
I wanted to talk about.
I think this is a situation I feel like in veterinary medicine, if you're in this field long enough, whether you're a veterinarian, whether you're a veterinary technician, a veterinary assistant, or even the hospital owner, practice manager, you have been in this situation somehow, sometime, or if you're newer to the field, you will be. Inevitably, you will be. And so this isn't about one hospital. This isn't about one
this is
person.
Profession wide, really.
This is just something that happens in veterinary medicine, and there's been a situation that has been brought to our attention, and we're going to talk about it. So go ahead.
Yeah, it goes on like, there's always bad situations. There's always things where clients are unhappy. Let's just put it that way. Clients unhappy for one reason or another, and a lot of the times it's the clients that, some of it does fall on us that the clients are not educated enough to know everything that is going through the brains of the team. And primarily it falls on the doctor, right? Because that's where it falls on. And the thought of, the backlash that we see sometimes on social media and how damaging that is for the veterinarian and for the team in the hospital in general. And yes, that is a bad thing, and it's a known thing. Like we see it all the time. We like you said, we've all either
we see it around all the time. We all rally around each other.
Yeah, and we try to talk our way through that. We try to figure out ways to. It's kind of like every CPR code. Like I teach recover, so I'm always saying that even if you don't get that patient back, you should learn something from that. Either better communication, quicker reaction time, quicker interpretation of your ECG, all that stuff. All those things are an opportunity to learn. And part of that is because we don't want to see everything that doesn't go the way that we wanted it to be a failure. So thinking of things as a learning experience. And with that social media part of it, yes, that's bad. And it impacts I'm not going to single out one group of people. It impacts the entire hospital because we're all responsible. And, the converse part of that is, what do we do for that owner? And it's come to our attention that sometimes what happens is the owners get refunded their money, and the hospital will bend over backwards to accommodate the client so that they don't get the social media backlash. And part of that is
like if a client is going to say, I'm going to go to the news. I'm going to post on
Right. I'm going to go
social
to the
media.
yeah.
I'm going to slander
I'm
you
going to go to the
essentially. Right.
newspaper.
Yeah.
I'm aging
Yeah.
myself by saying newspaper, but yes. Um,
Yeah.
and the part of that bugs me is that yes, we see that on social media. I've seen it happen before, where the doctor or the hospital would reach out and try to explain themselves on social media, and it goes absolutely poorly. Almost to the point where you're like, why did you even start this conversation? Um, and the flip side of that is to try to accommodate that owner by refunding the money and taking blame for that. Yes, we do need to own up to our mistakes if mistakes were made. Um, but the blanket statement of just giving the owner money back to uh, appease them and make them not go to social media. Um, uh, I get that. I understand that. However, to do that in a way to how do I put this, to protect the doctor, to protect the team, I feel like that does a disservice to the team because, and I was explaining this to you before we started recording, is that the known entity is the people that are going to bitch us out on social media because we did XYZ and we were wrong and blah blah blah. And that's a known entity. It's still damning. It's still damaging. It still hurts. It's still it is one of the things that drives people to suicide. I get that, but the other side of that is how does that look to the team and to the doctors and to the staff when you say, okay, we screwed up. Here's all your money back, uh, and maybe even some extra money to a donation to a charity of your choice. And how does that look to the people that are doing that? They're working their butts off. They are decent doctors, and
Yeah.
and getting that information to say our fault, um, and the management and the hospital itself is supposed to have the back of the team, and I feel like that is makes it much more for me. If I were in that situation, I'd be like, well, we just let these people get away with it. We let these people get away with bashing us and blackmailing us to say, if you don't give me my money back, even though we know that we did right by that patient, whether or not the outcome was what the owner expected, I feel like the people that are supposed to have your back are the hospital and your coworkers and your management and your team. Uh, and I feel like that for me would be more mentally damaging to
Yeah.
have that happen. What are your
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
I largely agree with you. I really do. And we talked off air about this. And while you were kind of talking about that, I kind of had another thought too. Like, I feel like this kind of thing happens in human medicine all the
Oh yes,
time.
yeah, yeah,
And what happens? Hospitals have lawyers, legal representation on retainer that deal with this, and you
yeah,
never hear about it. And I wonder sometimes if, like, Mr. or Mrs. John Q, veterinarian DVM private
mhm,
practice, who doesn't have that, like, they have their single private practice hospital, and they want to do everything they can to maintain the reputation because that's their livelihood, that's what they built, and they don't have a lawyer on retainer, so they're gonna do whatever they
yeah,
can to make it go away, which honestly is still the same as a large corporation who has legal representation on retainer who will say, this is what you need to do. Nobody will ever know about this. And it really frustrates me because I think it does devalue the
yeah,
effort, the time, the knowledge, the education, the skill set, all of those things that get put into the team. And um, we've said this multiple times. You and I are huge sports fans, and back in the day when we were kids, um, to the NFL, to a National Football League, their viewpoint was, we don't care what you say about us as long as you spell NFL right. You
True.
can write whatever you want about us, but if you're
Yep.
writing about the NFL, good press, bad
Have at
press,
it.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Have at it, because you are still writing about the
Talking about
NFL.
us. Yeah.
And now, and I think that's changed obviously to some degree with a lot that's gone on, but also every time, like, that still like generates clicks and interactions and all, and in this instant gratification world that we live in, like, I don't know, I think I would like to see, and we've seen some recent examples. Remember the situation up in Maine with Maine Veterinary
Yeah.
Medical
Yeah.
Center, what, a
Yeah.
year or two ago, a couple others as well. Like, the veterinary community really rallies around each other for as
That's
much
true.
as we bully and bash and whatever, all the horrible things that we do to each other sometimes. But when these things happen, we do really rally around each other. And so I don't know. I understand the side of making it go away, maybe making them sign a non-disclosure. And as long as you have, I think the important part is, as long as you have a team meeting and say, this is what happened. This is
Yeah.
what everybody did. We believe in what you did. We believe nobody did anything wrong, but this is what the legal team has advised us to do. And you
Yeah.
actually have an open roundtable discussion involving all members of the team and actually debrief and talk about it. I'm much more okay with that situation. I think the reality is that probably never ever happens.
Well, I
Um,
think it probably doesn't happen because the management doesn't want to
yeah,
exacerbate it, right?
sure. They want to just move on, sweep it under the rug, forget about it, whatever it is. And then, yes, to your point, I think that is then, like, where does that leave that associate veterinarian? Where does that leave that veterinary technician, assistant, whoever,
Yeah.
who busted their ass for a particular case and it just didn't end well?
Right.
Maybe that owner doesn't understand why. Maybe, sure, with their cursory research, they say, why didn't you ever do this? Or why didn't you do that? And they don't understand that they actually didn't have the money for it, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Or maybe that was recommended and they didn't want
and
to pay
so,
for it.
I understand, like, as professionals, we're never going to take that battle to social media,
Right.
but
Because it's never going
also,
to end well.
right, it's never going to end well, but there's got to be like I don't know, I feel like it's either, they threaten these things, so we're going to do this, or they do these things, and then what do you do? Like, how do you respond to that? And I don't know. I feel like sometimes I would rather, like, I think I in many cases I would rather, like you're saying, support the team and frankly let the owners speak their opinion. Like, if I work for whatever hospital I do in town, or even if it's a national corporation, people are going to have their opinions based
Hmm.
on what somebody says, regardless. And those are largely uneducated opinions. And if they're going to, I mean, we see it all the time where these news outlets pick up these stories. If they're going to actually do journalistic research and look into the other side of it too, great. But we know they're
Yeah.
not going to, and that's just a battle that we will constantly fight. And I think it's frankly something a lot of professions fight if we actually
Yeah.
looked at it. But yeah, that whole idea of, supporting the team. I think if it's a situation where, like, you just kind of turn your back on them and say, this is what we're doing to make it go away, but you
Yeah.
don't ever actually talk about it amongst the team and address it and, like, let everybody talk about what and that's just something that doesn't happen in veterinary medicine,
It does not.
period.
No.
I mean, frankly, any patient that dies that wasn't expected to, you should debrief. You should talk about
Right.
what everybody did, when they did it, why they didn't do this. Or a patient that goes home that was in a really bad spot, that should be celebrated and
Right.
reviewed why it did well, like what input, made these changes or what happened. And so then we don't ever do that in those smaller cases. And so when these big things happen where a patient dies, and or or somebody can't afford surgery and we offer relinquishment, and
Right.
then they're going to go to the media and they
Ooh,
want their
that's
dog
a
back.
whole
Like
other
that's a whole
that's
other
a whole
thing,
other
right?
can of worms. Yeah.
Right. But like if you don't talk about some of the smaller stuff with your team, then talking about the big, like, you have no idea as a
Yeah.
team how to deal with the bigger stuff. And I think that's a John or Gene Q veterinarian small town clinic
Yeah.
problem. That's a large national corporation veterinary medicine problem. That's just we are not good at talking about these
Well,
things.
and to your point, I do a lot of recover certifications and
Yeah,
training, and that's one of the things that I feel is the most lacking thing in this profession
100%,
is not talking about stuff after it happens. And
100%.
I swear to God, the number I always joke that you've got a very low chance of actually having to to defibrillate a patient, a veterinary
Mhm.
patient. I would say that the number of times that we defibrillate patients is about as often as we do debriefings, because
Sure.
it's so forgotten. Like we do that. Doctor goes and talks to the owner. We start to clean up. We start to bag the patient because it didn't make it, uh, and nobody talks about it. And I feel like, to your point, that's kind of the situation we're in here. Is that, yes, something didn't turn out the way that we thought it would, didn't turn out the way that the owner thought it would. Let's talk about it instead of
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
sweeping it under the rug. Sweeping it under the rug is not the right term, but
Right,
like
right, right. Yeah, just like
making it go away.
basically moving on. Yeah, and like
Right,
pretending it
right,
doesn't exist, more or
right.
less. And I was talking with a good friend of mine this week. I had a buddy of mine. He's a criticalist now, but I worked with him when he was a resident at Tufts. Very loyal caffeinator, and he always comments on, or he's not a big social media guy, but he always texts me thoughts on
Yeah,
episodes and things. And he and I, every couple of months, we Zoom and have a beer, or FaceTime and have a beer. And I was talking to him this past week, and he was the one resident I worked with in my time there that, no matter what was going on, if we did CPR, whoever
yep,
was involved in the CPR, we stopped afterwards and we debriefed. It,
yep,
it took 1, maybe 2 minutes.
yeah,
What worked well, what didn't, what we could have done better, what we
right,
learned. It doesn't have to be an hour-long staff meeting.
right,
Like
exactly. Yeah,
it's just
it's
a
in the
quick
moment.
discuss. Yes, it's in the moment while it's fresh in your mind. Like, what worked, what didn't. Like, how do you felt like you responded? Were you flustered? Do we need more training? Like, like, and I think we,
And it's also not, it's
especially
not a time for finger pointing either. That it's a time to
that,
like
yes, it has to
reassess.
be, yes, absolutely. And frankly, like, in this now instant gratification world we live in, like, that, it has to be
Yeah,
in that moment that you do
right.
that. Like, this can't be something you bring up at a staff meeting a month ago and you say, remember that patient we did CPR on, and this is
Not
what we need to
really.
do better. Like, yeah, and I think it's just, as a profession across the board, we are just not good at, like, and that's the whole thing, right? Like, do something, evaluate the response. Do
Yep,
any patient we treat, you
that's what we
do
do. Yeah,
something, monitor the trend, evaluate the response, and, like, if it doesn't work, you do something, like,
do something different.
yeah,
Yeah,
you do something different. And I just think that we don't do a good enough job with that, and then we end up in these situations, and then we literally have zero communication as a group, as a hospital, and then we
hmm,
don't know what to do with it. And so it's
right.
then just the make it go
Well, and
away.
then what happens if you don't talk about it? What happens? People
Right,
talk with
right, yeah,
misinformed
right.
opinions and information.
And frankly, just like you and I are now, like, as a team member, you're like, I busted my ass for that dog, and they're not even
Yeah,
going to stand up for me,
right,
when all that entity, all that hospital or administration or ownership or whoever it is has to say, like, look, we really value what you guys did with these patients, or this patient. Um, if this patient was going to survive, it was going to be because of you guys. It didn't.
right.
But as a business, these are the steps we have to take.
Yeah,
Like, but let's talk about it. And we don't ever do that. And so we end up feeling like we do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
that's
and
I think
yeah,
my
it's just
viewpoint.
it's something that's been on my mind because I've heard about a couple instances where I was like, oh,
Hmm.
that seems kind of like
Well,
backwards.
and I think if you're in this field long enough, you've been in that scenario.
Oh yeah,
Whether
100%.
you worked for a private practice or whether you work for a corporation or you work for a specialist or a GP, like I mean, I'm sure this happens every day in human medicine, but they
Yeah,
have legal counsel and we never hear about it. And there's a reason we never hear about it.
but I think
I would,
also in human medicine, it's such a like the hospitals in a that we're talking about are so large that
well, sure, sure,
that one
absolutely.
patient that didn't go the way you thought. Like I think a lot of that stuff, and I also think it
But
gets drawn out too in the human world
yeah,
because
yeah,
insurance takes forever, and
yeah,
it's
for
not something
sure.
that's going to get happened the
I,
next
I
day.
guess
It's
I
something
guess
that takes
my
months to do.
curiosity is how was that actually handled with the team that worked on that patient?
Right,
Like, is it
right.
actually addressed, or is it if you work in human medicine, it's a known entity and you just
Yeah,
know that legal's going to take care of it, and you move on and you keep doing what you got to do? And I don't know, it may be the same thing, but um, yeah, I know I feel the same way that like I don't like the I do feel like it undervalues or it's not even undervalues it. Like I don't know what the right word is, but in the moment, like where you say like basically what you did doesn't matter. Like we're just
hmm
gonna give these people their money back because you
right,
almost feel like you don't believe in everything that you did, and that's the thing is that's not actually the case,
right.
and I think that needs to be communicated better.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also needs to be communicated with the owners too. And maybe it's just that we see a lot of these cases, and the doctors are going to do their rule outs and say that it could be XYZ, but the chances of it being one of these things over the other, and staring you in the face is the thing that you know that it is. And yeah, you can do every single diagnostic test in the world and get to the same answer, or you can use your experience, your knowledge to say that this is what I typically see with this one test that leads to this diagnosis. And sometimes the treatment that we do for something that we expect would have been what we did anyways, in terms of like you could do x-rays, ultrasound, CT, MRI for all of these things and still get to the same result
Yeah,
that you had before you even did any of those tests. And I don't know, it's kind of a rabbit hole that I think we could probably go down with every single
yeah,
case we work on, right?
yeah, for
And
sure. Because
uh
I think the other side of that too, and we won't even go down this rabbit hole but I think that like we have all had those clients that we wish we could say those things about
right.
on social
Oh
media.
yeah,
Like this person's a horrible pet owner.
right.
Um, they, the blah blah
But
blah
we
blah blah
can't.
whatever it is. We never
Right,
do, and then somebody who we've never met, the first opportunity they have, that is their default is
right.
to like
That's the bad mouth.
put us on a blast.
Yeah.
And like when we could truly probably do that to other people 4 or 5 times a day. And so I think that's also part of it is that like we never do that, but when it's done to us, then it even stings a little bit more.
Well, and the fact that it's done to us, and we can't we
We don't even
can't
have the opportunity to defend it.
we don't have the opportunity to defend it because it just opens up a can of worms
Right.
that is eventually going to bite you in the butt.
Right.
And when I was back in New Hampshire, I saw a doctor that went toe to toe with a client, and it was blasted all over Facebook. And I was like, ugh, every comment I read, I was like, just stop engaging. Like you're making it worse for yourself.
Yeah.
And there's just we're stuck sometimes as a
Hmm.
veterinary profession, in that we
Yeah.
can't fight back on some of these things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because it just looks worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I I I I lament
And there's no logic on social media.
oh, of course not. No,
You cannot have a logical discussion
no, no,
in the
you can't.
comment section. Never.
Right. Because the owner's experience is going to be highlighted as correct, and
Hmm.
the hard part of that is that oftentimes when when that stuff does happen, it's only the client's voice that's being heard, so that becomes fact, right?
Mhm.
Because that's the only person that is uh, voicing an opinion about this. So there's no opposition to it. But opposing it only just looks worse for the hospital and for
Right.
the profession. So,
Right.
ugh,
Yeah.
it's no wonder the suicide rate is twice what normal people is, because you're stuck half
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
you're
You're damned
putting
if
your
you do,
blood,
you're
sweat, and
damned if you
yeah, you're
don't.
damned if you do, damned if you don't. You put your blood, sweat, and tears in all these cases because you care about animals, you care about these clients, you care about the owners, you care about the patients themselves, and still it's not
Yeah.
enough. It's
Yeah. And
ugh.
and I think in our profession it's just for most people, it's like simply moving on is not an option. Like
It's not an option. Yeah.
they carry that weight with them,
Yeah.
and I think that not to say that our human counterparts don't experience that, because I'm sure that they do.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I
Yeah.
would say they know
100%.
that they do, but I think that maybe is what sets us apart, is that we all carry that weight.
Yeah.
So
Ugh.
anyway, yeah,
It's tough. It's tough.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
I don't think we have a solution for that. It's
Yeah,
just it's one of those it is what it is
yeah,
situations, which
yeah, yeah. Ugh. Yeah.
anyways, moving on.
Anyways, moving on.
After we
We've had
spent 30 minutes
some.
on that.
Yeah, right, right. We've had some really great episodes recently.
Yes, we have, and so we've had our students that came on. We've got one that is that episode that is uploading tonight, which I think is a great episode. That was great to hear from her.
Yeah.
Um,
Which, I mean, this is going to be out before this uploads, so
yeah,
we can
so
talk about it too.
Marina,
Yeah, Marina was a
she
great,
wears
great
many, many
episode.
different hats.
Oh my gosh, that was so
Yeah,
fascinating to talk about and hear about the BCVTA
yeah.
and that they're the Veterinary Technologists Association and the reasoning behind that, and just a lot of things going on.
Oh,
That
and
was
at the back end of it, like I felt like we should have spent more time on this. Is that she is of Indian descent, works in Canada, and she talked about the people of color in this profession. It is extremely low, and you know we've talked about this in the veterinarian stage of like how do the people of color have role models to
right.
be in this
Where's the
profession when
representation?
there's no representation. And I guess in the her Indian descent, she mentioned that the profession the profession in India is a lot different than it is here, where I think she said, "Why would you spend any money on a pet?" Which I get that if that's what the culture is, if that's what the thought
Sure.
process is over there. But again, how do you get people of color like into the
Yeah.
profession? And
And again, maybe those wheels I think turn very slow. Those
yeah,
wheels turn
yeah,
one crank at a time, generation by
yeah,
generation, and I feel like Marina and people like her are
yeah,
big cogs in those wheels. Like now, people of the next generation,
yeah,
she is their representation. She is their
yeah,
role model, and
yeah.
um,
She's the example. Yeah.
she's the example. And like it sucks that it takes that long for that to happen, but especially in it's so difficult again in this instant gratification world we live in, that like this all needs to happen now, but
Hmm.
like sometimes these things, like, they take a generation at a time to
Yeah.
shift viewpoints,
Sometimes two.
to yeah, to get more people in the field and to do these, like, you as much as we want to drive all this change, like, you also can't force that. You can't
Right.
force
You
people
can't
to
force
take
people to do.
into this field or to work in these jobs or whatever it is. And I think it's true in veterinary medicine, and I'm sure it's true in a lot of other
Yeah.
professions as well. But so it was a really, really fascinating discussion. We had our two student episodes,
Yep.
which were great in their own right, and
Hmm.
they were students in different programs, and we had some feedback. We got some emails from students in other
Yeah.
programs that said it
Yeah. That
was
was
really
great to
great to
hear.
just hear student perspectives,
Yep.
and frankly, these are the people that are the future of the profession.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think, listening to our two guests, I both Ralia and Sandra, I think it's like in good hands.
Sydney. Not Sandra.
Sydney, excuse me. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was thinking about Sandra, the previous student guest we had.
Yeah.
Sydney,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think the profession's in good hands.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean,
So,
I think we got people that are encouraged and uh, what's the word? Motivated to make change,
yes,
which
yes.
I think is desperately needed. And we also had a couple other episodes. We interviewed yet another one of our study mates.
Hmm.
We're not going to say her name, but another person we studied with that is doing great things.
Yeah.
And another guest that is kind of a, I don't know. Would you say that the other guest is famous
I mean, I think he's
to some degree? Yeah.
to some degree, maybe vet med famous. I think that the imprint that person has on our
Yes.
profession is vast, and
Yep.
I don't like they're not a an influencer or like a big personality or that, but they have impacted a lot of
Yeah.
people in this field's lives and
And
careers,
that was a good,
and
that was such a
that
great
was
conversation. That was
yes,
so fun. One of the more
yes,
fun episodes that I think we've recorded
yeah,
because
yeah,
it was
absolutely.
just fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, it's only February, but we're also going to be recording soon our May mental health
Yeah.
series episodes, which are going to be awesome. We every year I feel like we're somewhere December, January. We're like, what are we going to do for May? And we don't
Yeah.
have anything planned. And then all of a
They
sudden,
just fall in our lap.
they fall in our lap. And this year, and they're always like kind of related, and it's the same thing this year. So
They're
we've got
kind of
another.
related, but they're also not the same thing we did last year,
Right. Yes.
right?
That's just it. Yeah. And so it's a little bit different, I guess, theme, if you will. But we've got a couple of great episodes. We actually haven't recorded them yet. We have them scheduled, but I think they're going to be really great episodes.
Hmm.
So yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike. So yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good. And you and I have been saying it's great to have these things planned out ahead of time where we're not like
Hmm.
scrambling, like, oh, we've got an episode that's supposed to upload next week and we don't have it recorded yet. It's great to have this kind of like buffer of having
Yeah.
things already in the works that are ready to go. So that makes things a lot easier to deal with, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. So, well, I think that about covers everything we had.
I
Did I
think
miss
that's it.
anything?
I mean, it's a weird Sunday. It's like the first Sunday in like 8 months without football.
I know. And today was supposed to be the Daytona 500, which I know a lot of
Oh, did
people
they not
don't
do
care
that?
about. No, it's rained out.
Oh,
They're gonna run it tomorrow. So that was my big thing
well,
I was
you're
going
off
to do
tomorrow.
today. Yeah,
You're
I'm
off
off
tomorrow,
tomorrow,
right?
so
So
I'll
you're
watch
good.
it. And Molly's off tomorrow, so I'll be able to watch it live.
There you go.
She can monitor Daphne, which is what I'm doing now. This is my life now. Caffeinators is watching naps on a baby monitor, but here we are. So
Good
yeah,
times.
yeah, good times.
All
Well,
right, buddy.
good. Yeah, great to see you, Caffeinators. Thanks again for tuning in to another Vet Tech Tap Room. We will see you. We'll be doing our next tap room in March from Phoenix. We'll be doing
Oh,
it
that's right.
together,
Yeah.
provided we bring the equipment and we can figure out the technology part of it again, because it's
So
been
we
6 months
struggled a little
since
bit
we
with
did
that
it.
last year with the echo and
But
all that stuff.
yeah, but I think we'll be able to make it
Yeah,
work.
we'll be
So
good.
yeah, we'll see you guys again soon. Take care.
Bye, guys.